Hey, Matt, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I gotcha. Sounds
Aw-
great.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for joining. And everybody who's watching this on X and YouTube and in our Telegram channel, welcome. We hope you enjoy the conversation and certainly post any questions in the chat and we'll get to them toward the end. Uh, Matt, when we had a chance to chat before coming online right here, I saw on Twitter, the rooster in your hands, which obviously I see in your little avatar, and then planting an apple tree and doing stuff in the yard. And so it looks like you're into farming and gardening.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I live at the bottom of a mountain, and strangely enough, blockchains and gardens, man, it's like super relative. So I find it a fun way to help people understand different concepts, especially things that we're working on at Seda. Just breaks up the timeline a little bit.
Yeah, I subscribe to a crypto investment newsletter called Crypto Capital from Stansberry Research. So free plug for them, and they recommended a farming based blockchain. I don't know, maybe like 6 or 9 months ago, and I can't think of what it is off the top of my head. But what was cool about it was that small time farmers got access to really expensive, big time data, like global data, and so everybody was connected and able to share info, and I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah, those are actually super cool. They're like I talked to a project that was the same kind of concept. I think I know the one you're talking about, but they were doing for like marketing data for food, and it was like an AI brain that everyone could like tap into as long as you uploaded your own kind of sales data, and everyone could tap into it. But this is like the same thing, but for farming for different like soil types. It's super cool. Don't get me started. I'll never stop.
Yeah, I know totally. There was another one where coffee growers in, I want to say Colombia, just somewhere in South America, from grower to the retail person who sold the cup of coffee, everything was on chain. And when they sold the cup of coffee for crypto at the end of the chain, every single person along the chain would get some sort of fractional payment from that cup of coffee, which I thought was amazing.
That's super cool. That's a super cool
Yeah,
use case.
super cool use case, like real world, not just like swapping on a dex trying to make some money. Um,
Look
and
out,
I
we might have more than one application soon.
yeah. So do you know about aquaponics? I used to be an aquaponic farmer back in the day.
Oh, no way. Yeah, I mean, I know a lot about them. Obviously, I got like land here, so I don't like dabble in it. But I have always wanted my dream, like my big end goal dream, is to like just have a small natural pond that has like fish and plants in it that I can
Yep.
grow plants on the surface, have the fish feed it, and like have the full cycle where I get like the fish droppings and put that into my garden and have the full closed loop.
We had it. We had a greenhouse in our backyard, and probably I think at one time 75 tilapia and a bunch of growing towers, and
Ah,
probably
damn.
900 gallons of water in two different tanks. And
Wow.
it was funny too. Our neighbors, they all thought we were growing pot because we had a greenhouse in our backyard. And but there would be a plane that flew over all the time, but we actually weren't growing weed. We were just growing vegetables and stuff. And it was hard. Like farming is really difficult, and I was not good at it. So after a couple of years, I shut her down and sold everything. But so I've got mad respect for farmers and for what you do. It's not easy.
Yeah, man. I mean, what you guys are doing with like the aquaponics is much more difficult. I mean, I'm lucky. I'm sort of like a permaculture biodiverse, so like 2-3 years of hard work, and then the system's kind of set up now, and I'm lucky. I mean, I talk about it in a lot of my little videos on X. So I can sort of just plant a seed and walk away at this point. But yeah, it takes a bit of back breaking work at the start, and then once you get it going, then it's a beautiful thing. I guess like yeah, that's the relation to blockchain is like very hard to get up and running, very hard to bootstrap. But if you do it right, then hopefully it should just run itself at a certain point.
Nice. Well, will you please give everyone who's listening like a quick 60-second bio of your background and how you got involved with crypto and then eventually Seda?
Yeah, man, absolutely. So originally from Australia, background in sales. Funnily enough, background in selling boutique coffee. So very very into your example there from Colombia, because that one hits home. Yeah, we're selling boutique coffee in Australia, and then actually a client of mine, it was a big marketer from NYC, had his own marketing agency set up between where I was in Australia and NYC, and he was buying our coffee. He used to come in to the roastery and picked himself up a Web3 contract without knowing anything about crypto. And he knew that I was right into it personally at that time, like, I don't know, 2018, 2019, actually. And so asked me if I would jump into his agency and help him out, and just kind of like told him what my salary was. And he said he'd double it. I was like, okay, let's go. And that was my entryway into it. And so I started working for his agency. and then spun out on my own when I moved to Spain. My wife's Spanish, so we moved over here when after we had our first born in Australia. And then, was doing like my own thing, worked for like Web3 esports companies, sort of at the intersection there. Then, had like an array of experience, really worked with some DeFi platforms, worked with an L1 mobile blockchain briefly as well. Did like a lot of pre-sale contracts for people, that kind of thing. And then just got really sick of sort of darting from project to project. And, I was sort of sick of working for like Anon teams and things. I wanted like, sort of to work for a real project that was building for a real future, that really believed in sort of something above and beyond a sort of 24-month timeline. And then got connected to the team at Seda. And I was interviewing for a few different projects at the time. And I said no to all the other offers I got. I got 3 other offers at the time. And it was over a Christmas holiday period. And they were like big on taking breaks over that Christmas, the Christmas day, New Year. And I was like, okay, I'm going to say no to these other contracts. Just take a Hail Mary that they'll pick me up in January. And they did, of January 2024. So I've been with Seda now for 14, 15 months and loving every second.
Allowing you to have a life over the holidays?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny that they say that, but like, I mean, I don't know if you see us on X. We're all pretty like hooked in 24/7, but it's good to have the option, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's crypto, right? It's 24/7.
How
about for those who aren't familiar with Seda, will you give like a 10,000-foot overview?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like the best way, I mean, I'm assuming people tuning in here are familiar with oracles, and kind of like every oracle that you've probably heard of does an opposite oracle approach to what we do, in that they supply certain feeds and developers take that data and build certain applications based on the feeds available. We take a little bit more like a Domino's order your own pizza approach. So what Seda is it's a programmable oracle, the same way that you would choose like your base, your source, your ingredients, your cooking styles, and your delivery address. With Seda, you choose what data you want, where it comes from, how do you need it returned, and where do you need it returned to, and we can do that for every blockchain. So we are the Domino's pizza of the blockchain oracle world, I guess. So if you've ever ordered your own pizza, same thing, but instead of pizza, you're ordering data, and you can do so from any blockchain. So basically, we're flipping the script on oracle models, and we're sort of evolving oracles from the legacy oracles that you see in production today, and sort of unveiling what we're calling a programmable oracle network.
So how do you think that the legacy oracles are going to adjust and adapt and try to catch up? Not that they have to catch up, maybe that's the wrong word, but compete.
Yeah, it's a super interesting positioning, right? Is like, obviously the elephant in the room is like, we're all oracles, right? But I write like a lot of blogs on this, and sort of from my understanding over 15 months, like how I'm looking at oracles now is a lot of the oracles that are big today, they were designed for a different blockchain landscape, a different technical makeup, right? There was a few smart contract networks at the time, very few kind of applications when you think about it, like just mostly within the DeFi world. And today, most of the oracles, when we talk to different networks, so we're going to mainnet very, very soon, and we're organizing our mainnet partners now, and we're talking to core networks like your common blue chips, to mid-tail and long-tail. And sort of the one thing that we're hearing from developers, especially those who aren't on the core networks, is how long they're waiting to get like native asset price feeds to do DeFi on their chain to bring in extra liquidity. And the reason is kind of like these legacy oracles, they were designed for the time in which they were being built, right? And so they face challenges with like scale, and they face challenges with like the ability to have flexibility to spin up different feeds very quickly. So they sort of follow the traction, which makes sense. I mean, when you think about when they were born, when they were built. So with Seda, to like be more direct to your question, like there's always the option that existing oracles could use our rails to expand their offerings, right? So they could, instead of spinning up your own feeds and redeploying new infrastructure to new chains, you could deploy, I don't know, let's take like, I don't know, like maybe it's like an API 3 or like a it could be anyone, right? Anyone who's got an Oracle feed now, you could spin it up as an Oracle program, basically saying, this is the data we want, this is where we want it from, this is how it's to be returned. And then you could scale that via Seda. So I only say that to help people understand where we kind of sit as an Oracle network versus a traditional Oracle, right? It's like we kind of sit a half step down the stack, because you could deploy existing oracles on Seda and use what we have, which is an intent-centric design, which basically just means that chains make an order through their Oracle program, and like solvers, little assistants, relay that to the Seda chain. So we don't have to deploy Seda to all the different networks. they can connect via one contract and make that order. So you could put other oracles on top of us.
Yeah, the chain agnosticism is one of the things that I was immediately attracted to. I think that that's super smart. And I
Yeah.
didn't even think about, putting oracles on top of your Rails to leverage all of the data that Seda has. Super smart. You had
Yeah.
mentioned, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's super interesting, right? It's because like a lot of the oracles out there that have built, they have like really good price feed offerings for like your top 200, and then maybe they offer different things, like they're doing price feeds or they're doing liquid restaking or whatever it might be. But they're just like naturally hindered by their design from when they were designed, 4 years ago. So it's kind of cool to have this kind of like oracle network that can sit under them, and then they could use Seda as like, because they could run the business effectively just on oracle programs and take out a lot of resource time and cost time. It's not like obviously our primary focus, but it's cool to sort of think about how do we expand what we built 4 years ago to fit the landscape today.
So you mentioned short, medium, and long tail chains. Will you help me understand what you mean by that?
Yeah. So when I say like long tail chains, it means sort of like your alternative chains, probably the ones that people haven't really heard of. They're maybe, they're not like your Ethereum, Arbitrum, Solanas. They're sort of like, the newer chains that are spinning up, newer L2s that might be part of clusters, then part of different VMs, non-EVMs. And basically, why we go and have those conversations is because when you're asking about like different oracles and how we fit in, it's like if you go and talk to a legacy oracle at the moment, it's a real chicken and an egg problem, right? It's like, how do I get developers to come and build on my network so that they'll build applications which will attract users, right? And then you say, okay, I need an oracle is one of the foundational infrastructures that you'll need. But then the oracle says, like, how can I justify the cost and the time it takes to completely redeploy my infrastructure, potentially write contracts in different coding languages to deploy to your network if there's no users there or there's no developers there? So you have these situations where it's like, I need one before the other and I can't do it. But with the programmable oracle network design, they can deploy the proof of contract or have the proof of contract deployed. And then those feeds built. We put a video out like 4 months ago in our DevNet with Jasper building an exotic price feed in 97 seconds. So if it was your first go, maybe you do it in 15, 20, 30 minutes max, like if it's your first time doing it. And that's how quickly they can spin up a feed for their own native asset. And then by spinning up those feeds, spinning up some core feeds, then you can start to unlock use cases like maybe it's DeFi lending to stake the native asset, unlock another thing, or bridge in with like a Hyperlane bridge, warp route, for example, some stable coins. And then you can start staking, locking, getting collateral and doing DeFi on that chain and giving like user incentive. So basically it's like an unlock for these networks to get connected, get liquidity flowing into their networks and get users coming across as well.
So I listened to briefly a clip that you guys put on X maybe earlier this morning, and you had mentioned that Seda kind of skates to where the puck is going. Use that Wayne Gretzky analogy. And so is that what you mean? It's frictionless compared to other data providers. So devs, have an easy way to get the data that they need to build the app that they want, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, so the way that we see, like the thesis behind Seda is really that like we are going to have lots of different chains. I don't know if they're going to be thousands or hundreds, even if they're like, 50, 60, 70 pumping chains that are all then supporting like different roll-ups perhaps, or like, maybe let's say there's hundreds and app chains are a thing. Every application has its own blockchain. Developers going to those chains, just the 5 core oracles right now, like they can't scale to meet that builder demand. It's just not going to happen. Like in order to support that industry or where the industry is going, at least where we think it's going, builders need to have that day one access to fundamentals. That's why, like, I personally, I like tweet about like Hyperlane a lot because I really like their permissionless expansion thesis. I really like Pioneer by Li-Fi, formerly Catalyst, who have like a solver as a service for day one, solver on your network. And then you add those 3 together. So you get a bridge on day one, you get a Pioneer solver as a service to bridge user liquidity in on top, and they can rebalance via the message bridge. And then you put Seda's like programmable data feed in there. Networks on day one can now not sit around and watch their, raised money or not raised money burn. They can start building, they can track developers and users. And I think for our industry where we're at, that's really exciting. So, okay, maybe we can see what we're capable of doing if we just let the builders build.
So one of the things I really like is that you didn't mention any specific names. You just say the legacy oracles. We run a validator for Seda, and then we also we're a Genesis validator for Band protocol, which is arguably the Cosmos OG Oracle. So if you were to have a conversation with Band and figure out how there were synergies, what might that conversation sound like?
I don't mean this in like this is a me issue, not a band issue, but I was only looking into them when you showed me their docs. And I think like for me, I was just more curious. Like they mentioned some custom scripts, so I mean, if we would have like a truthful conversation here, I'd just be curious to be like, oh, how flexible are your custom scripts, right? Because they do mention the ability to spin up some custom feeds. So I'd be curious as to like, what data they're able to spin up there. How do they scale outside of like the Cosmos ecosystem? Is that something they're interested in? These kind of ideas. Because if we ever think about like working with other oracles, for example, the kind of thing that makes sense is what we were talking about at the beginning is like expansion, using our Rails for other oracles to expand their services. Because I don't think they use like an intent-centric design. So I'd be curious as well to sort of understand that a little bit more. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like, there's always like very curious to see like how they've been around for quite some time, I think. So I think they've had
maybe I can make an introduction. Who knows?
Yeah, man, it'd be cool. I mean, we're always happy to chat. But it'd be cool just to understand their architecture a bit more. And I think they sort of not a rebrand, but sort of a redirection at some point with how their Oracle works.
I know they have V3 coming up fairly soon. You guys, we'll get into your mainnet launch here in just a second. But did Seda choose Cosmos, because of interoperability and how the SDK, is suited for that?
So one of the big things here is like we're like 100% sort of chain and ecosystem agnostic. The Cosmos SDK was just a good SDK to build the Seda chain for the needs that we needed with proof of stake, to have the validator staking, to have what we have is like tamper resistant batches that need validator signatures. It just worked really well for sort of the core main chain infrastructure. It was more of a design decision, not necessarily like boxing ourselves into one ecosystem, because what we built on top, because remember, Seda's like a multi-participationary network. So it has our Seda main chain, which is a Cosmos SDK build. And obviously the Seda token is a Cosmos standard. But then we have like the overlay network built on top of it. We have the decentralized solver network on the other side. We have our proxy nodes that connect to our data provider. So there's like this kind of different system where the Seda main chain obviously is built on Cosmos, but all the other elements kind of make us, I hate to use this word because we cooked it last year, but plug and play to whatever sort of ecosystem you're in.
Cool. So I guess the plug and play is, I know I've heard you say from day one, developers can build the feeds that they need and access the data from Seda. So I guess that's the plug and play, huh?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the way it works is like you take the prover contract. That's like the front door. So that's like where it's like you're ordering that pizza on your app. You're holding your phone. That's the prover contract. Your order data request goes through that. It goes to a decentralized solver network. They settle the value of the data request in whatever currency they want. So like you can do it all in stables. You don't have to do it in Seda. Then the solver relays that request to the Seda network by using Seda tokens, burning a portion of those and distributing to other participants. Then when it hits the Seda chain from the solvers, they retrieve your Oracle program ID, which is your predefined set of instructions of how your data request is to be carried out, the what data, the where, and how you want it returned. Then a group of overlay nodes, which can be programmed. So you could choose like one or two if you just want to be, you're not too worried about decentralization, or you could do, as many as you want. They form little groups. They go and query independently the data sources. Then they all return individually their results. It goes through like a filter system, which you can define how things get filtered. It's returned to the chain. Chain goes off to the solvers. The solver's like the delivery guy, drops it back onto the chain, and that's it.
I wish I had the technical know-how that you've got. I came from traditional finance. And so my eyes glazed over as you were speaking. It sounds like a lot of stuff from beginning to end.
It's the Domino's pizza analogy, man. Every house is a blockchain. Everyone can order their pizza their way and get it delivered to their house. That's the easiest way to understand it.
Gotcha. So as a dude who comes from TradFi, are you able to comment on Seda's tokenomics and, if Treasury is doing anything with like, I don't know, with liquidity that it owns to feed back to as rewards or anything like that?
No, it's one thing I can't comment on, not from a knowledge point of view, but just purely from like our operational standpoint. We're kind of anything that we can say around like the token, we share on our X. So if people are curious, we have like blogs on our token, how it's functioning within a data request lifecycle, because that's another thing, is like we're one of the only oracles that consumes the token or uses the token in the data request lifecycle on chain, which is exciting. And then any of the other use cases, we have like an FAQ up as well. And people can join our community call and fire those questions off at the CEO, Peter, every month, and get the best, clearest answers from him.
Well, with mainnet rolling out, I know you guys are, transitioning from DevNet to a mainnet, and the audit is undergoing, and there's, stuff is being tested in the background. Are you able to elaborate on the current status of, what's going on with the audit and what the community might be able to expect over the next couple of weeks or month?
Yeah, big day tomorrow. Big announcement. Things are looking good. Let's dab a little bit of alpha there out for the people, shall we? Looks like all the issues that were considered valid by the judges of the audit have now been fixed by our engineers. So engineering team, as we speak, is sitting down with management and just making sure that that is the case, in which case we will relay comms to the community tomorrow. So what that looks like is just the final days of the audit now, like basically just processing the report, which we can make public, which will be very, very bullish because we've been talking about it for a long time. And then from there, it's testnet. So testnet is a very quick turnaround. Basically, what that means is like we built all the dev nets out last year, as everyone knows, 6 different versions. So we're just upgrading testnet to v1.0. And then we will deploy the first Oracle programs that we've built, run some tests on those, do some dry runs, stabilization, which is all going to be done in public. So one thing I'm excited about, being sort of on the public side of the team, is being able to communicate all of that, because I know one thing people will say is like, we're not sure what's going on in the engineering team. Of course, these things take a long time. Testnet's going to be very public. We're going to just walk people through the whole step over the 2 or 3 weeks that it operates. And then we'll be going to mainnet, anytime around we don't do timelines, but maybe around May is probably a pretty good indicator for the community. So full steam ahead now.
So I assume it is the initial launch partners, I guess, who are doing much of the testing in the beginning of the mainnet rollout.
Yeah, so we will take that proof of contract I was talking about, which is kind of like the point of communication for Seda, and we will likely deploy that to just some core EVM chains for testing, some network partners that we have, and some other EVM networks as well that we're talking to now. And then, have the feeds ready, build those feeds with teams. Some of the more like exotic stuff, like some of the RWA stuff we're doing, we can build out those Oracle programs. When the IVM design, the verification module that we announced maybe 6 weeks ago now, is finally designed, that will go on there as well. So there'll be plenty to look at on the Explorer to see how this functions, plenty of like Oracle programs to see in the wild for the first time. And then once everything's green lighted, it's stable and optimized, and Mario, our head of engineering, is happy, we will do the final upgrade to mainnet, and then we enter what we're calling out like a rollout period.
Nice. I saw you guys are connecting to more than 5 EVMs a day on average, which completely blows me away. And
those are conversations. I wasn't sure if I was clear about that.
Yeah. I mean, amazing. And I know that, we love Cosmos. And I know the ICF is helping to make Evmos open source, and they're rebranding it as the Cosmos EVM. Mm-hmm. Are they a launch partner, or is Seda in conversations with them in any way?
Yeah, I mean, we're close with the Interchain team. We've been talking a lot lately. There is some alpha there, but I think it's too early to share that because it's Interchain alpha. But yeah, Seda's involved, I will say that. They've got a lot of things going with their connectivity, as you said, to different VMs. And very happy to be sort of amongst what they're doing there. And then, so people can understand, it's like why we chose the EVM. Maybe that's a good way to go here, is like, well, we chose the EVM because the proof of contract was initially written in Solidity. And some of these like other VMs, you need like a combination or like different write-ups. So we have the non-EVM expansion. I'm actually releasing a blog on Monday that's talking about our EVM expansion plan, how we're going to go from EVM and how we're going to go to non-EVM, and what that's going to look like.
Yeah, I see. Like Fuel launched an EVM and Move VM, and obviously there's a lot, a lot of stuff
Yeah.
under the hood to consider.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of these networks are actually pretty excited to spin up their own proof of contracts because that'll be open source. So you can take it and then fork it into your own language. So like Fuel, it would be in Sway. Solana could do it in Rust, and then the Move chains could do it. So excited to, yeah, I mean, it's really excited to sort of get the technology out there and in the public, because we've talked a lot. Like head of marketing, I can tell you one thing, that my job is like, we've talked a big game. And I, for one, I'm just ready to, yeah, kind of put our money where our mouth is and just go like, this is a really cool technology and the rollout's going to be great. And I'm just keen to show it in the wild.
Nice. You mentioned real world assets a few minutes ago. Like, what role will Seda play, with RWAs, and how does it help that aspect of crypto evolve?
Yeah, absolutely. If people are curious for a deep dive after I speak on this, you can actually go to Plume's website. They have a report on how they're going to use Seda for real world assets on Plume, which is a real world asset dedicated L2 built on Arbitrum, I think. Anyway, so we have them ready to go and all the applications building there. And then on the data provider side, we're very close with a data provider group called RWA World, who we're going to be releasing some research reports with early April across the testnet phase, basically. And they're really interesting because they have some amazing feeds. Like I think we could talk about tokenized stocks and what that does, but everyone's kind of like looking into that.
Sure.
What is really good with like our elasticity, I can never say that word, flexibility and programmability, is we can take really wild feeds, right? So these guys have like Taylor Swift sentiment scores, for example. They have old whiskeys, they have watches, all these really cool asset feeds that they're making available to bring on chain, and we'll basically be the data transmission layer for that to make those feeds available to a player like Plume, and then for their builders building applications to do what they do and see what they see with that data available by building Oracle programs on Seda. The other thing that we see is with RWAs is like long-term vision. And I say long-term vision because I think everyone's talking about it right now, but the reality for RWAs is like it's a new asset class in a lot of ways. There's a lot of regulation, got a lot of unknowns. But I personally believe that like TradFi and enterprise is coming on chain. Blockchain's a really good way for them to, do lots of things with their money, whether it's like saving by using stable coins, rebalancing, or whatever it might be. And I just think like by having like US stocks on chain and the world being able to access those, like there's cool things you can do, right? Like you take like your assets on Robinhood and then you tokenize them, you make the feeds through Seda, and then people can build like, you basically use your stock as collateral, borrow some USDC, perhaps go off to other DeFi protocols, set up all these different loops. I mean, who knows, right? Like your mind can go wild. But I would say like where Seda fits in primarily is like RWAs can be anything. Probably it's going to be majority tokenized stocks. But with these companies like RWA World that are doing different things, they need like a really flexible Oracle rail to bring those feeds on chain. And so we'll sit in the middle, basically bringing that data on chain for people to build with.
Gotcha. Yeah, I used to own some tokens in Polymesh, which is a pretty interesting project, and they're all about tokenizing securities. And I know I'm certainly excited to see Ondo Finance, whenever they decide to launch their Cosmos chain with, money market and treasuries and all that stuff that's tokenized. And then Shade Protocol, phenomenal Cosmos project. They've got Shade X, which is their private shielded money market. So, tokenizing all that stuff, I think is really interesting.
They're doing a lot with was it the guys at EclipseFi? I saw tweeting partnerships with them. Do you know Simon over at EclipseFi? He's working with Neutron. He's working with like Neutron guys, and they're like doing a DeFi play, and I think Shade was involved with that. Yeah, it's just exciting for Cosmos DeFi, basically. I think all in all, Cosmos DeFi is sort of going under a secret renaissance as well.
Yes. Yeah. So I love Shade Protocol, and I've been watching them for a while. And Secret Network, I've owned tokens since it was called Enigma, like way back in the day. So I'm excited to see whenever the crypto community decides that privacy is important, to see how that stuff kind of takes off.
Yeah, I love that you say that because it's so funny. So it's like, so I saw someone tweeting something similar about that today. It was like, came here for philosophy, came here to take on, I don't know, like authority, left with a meme coin or something like that. And it's like, yeah, did we forget what we were doing here in all these years?
So what role is Seda playing in the broader Cosmos ecosystem? And I guess I'm kind of referring to DeFi protocols like maybe Osmosis or Ellis. How do you partner up with them, or how do they use Seda?
Yeah, I mean, I think like it'll always just come back to like the fact that we're also like, we say data agnostic, like anyone who wants to, basically anyone who's facing challenges with their sort of legacy oracles that are a bit more rigid or not coming to their networks or don't have the feeds that they need, Seda is just a great option to plug and play to get those exotic feeds. So people in like Cosmos that are struggling to get, more assets onto their bridges, maybe they want to be able to provide more token swaps, maybe they want to provide more routes, the IVM would be a really good module for them to plug in because it gives bridges the ability to expand their services to any other chain as long as the proof of contract's available in that language at the time, which will have its own rollout phase. And then when we say any data, that also means like any token, right? Because tokens just data on the blockchain. You can query that state anywhere. So it gives bridges that maybe also, this is another interesting concept that I think about a lot, is like a lot of the bridges that are still building today or interrupt will also started their design in a period of the blockchain landscape that's now outdated, and having something like Seda plug in underneath with the programmability can work the same way that we're talking about like oracles on top of Seda's rails earlier in the conversation, and just help them expand, right? And just help them scale to new chains, new Cosmos chains pop up, just maybe deploying the proof of contracts a better way than sort of using sort of the light client setup. Depends on the different chains designs. Now we've got these chains that sit between like two VMs that, sometimes it's not as, the integration is not as simple as what a bridge would like it to be. So the proof of contract comes in handy there. So yeah, but I mean, for DeFi, like build the feeds that you need and then build the applications that consume those feeds. So if it's different prices, if it's like tokenized stocks, as long as there's a public API or one of our provided data providers have the data, you can get the feed. So I guess that's the big message is like, yeah, if you're struggling with oracles and you just need something done, you can create it yourself using our SDK.
So one of the things that always bothers me about bridges are derivative tokens. And obviously when bridges get hacked, those derivative tokens get demolished. How does a bridge, is it just data packet transfer using Seda, and that's how they forego the need for a derivative token? Help me understand that.
Sorry, say that question again. It might be above my pay grade.
Oh, gotcha. How would a bridge employ Seda protocol, and can they evolve past using derivative tokens? And they're just transferring. So I guess I think of Chainlink's cross-chain transfer protocol, and then I think of IBC and how those two things are, leaving traditional bridge technology in the rearview mirror. And so when you mention bridges, it makes me think, can derivative tokens be replaced at some point so I don't have to worry about the bridge getting hacked and then the derivative token imploding? Instead, can they use the SATA rails and just move packets of information around so it disappears on one chain and then it's on the other?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, they're probably, to be completely honest, they're probably more likely, I mean, you can do that, but you're more likely to use like an existing like mint and burn kind of method. That's what you're kind of referring to, right? Like having these token standards. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you definitely could. You could, this is a Jasper answer. Yeah, it definitely can because we have the programmability to do it. But it's probably not the primary use case for Seda, where you might use like a hyperlane and their token standard. Maybe you choose like a wormhole, like I've seen a few enterprise projects choosing wormhole. Maybe you choose layer 0, for example. But if you take like layer 0,
I was thinking of Axelar.
Axelar, that's what I was thinking. Thank God. Yeah, sorry. I didn't know that because I've been digging deep into like verification marketplaces. And you can use like, what's Axelar's standards? ITT from memory?
You know what? I honestly don't know.
The NTT or something. Yeah, they've all got different ones. But you could use that. And if they wanted to expand beyond the chains that Axelar supports now, this is where the IVM would come in. And instead of having to redirect Axelar's 74 validators or 78 validators that they have that don't all verify outcomes on the same chains, you could do that with Seda, where Seda would plug in to be the verification. It would be easier to use an existing bridge with token standards, and then use Seda as an expansion for their like verification to be able to speed their deployment to new rails, to new blockchains rather. So they would service the ones that they've already got, but then when they go to another chain, they could use Seda's IBM and theoretically cut some of their deployment time off because they don't need to redeploy all the infrastructure because we would take over the verification like a modular verifier plugging in. And then you could use our overlay nodes on top, which again could be programmed to be whatever. And you would essentially have the same security without the lift that Axler would have today, taking their security with them to all the different chains that they want to go to. And then having the validators maintain, their connection points to those different chains to read state on those chains, yada, yada.
Yeah. So I guess while we're on that topic, how would you explain to a crypto newbie the role that validators fulfill and why they would want to stake their Seda tokens?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we have two types of validators. It's just like an explain it like I'm 5 series, or you because I need to think about that.
But explain it to a 5th grader, I guess.
Yeah, cool. So validators. Let's just talk about the main chain validators. They're like our security guards in the schoolyard. If you go to such a school like that, you need security guards. And basically what happens is when information comes through the playground, it's going to go into school to the teacher that's going to, that only takes official information. The security guards on Seda, they essentially sign that information to say, yes, it's legit. And they wrap it in like bubble wrap so that the student assistant that carries that information from the playground to the principal cannot change the information. It's in a lockbox with lots of security locks around it. And no one can get into it because the security guards have put their padlocks on it and they've locked it up, and only the principal has the keys to unlock that to make sure that the information remains the same. How was that?
Well, excellent. Yeah, I love the playground analogy. And I went to a school where we had security guards, so I totally
it resonated.
It did, for sure. That's why I burst out laughing.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, perfect.
So I guess whoever's listening, if you don't have Seda tokens in your portfolio and you want to add them, you can certainly stake with us with Atlas staking and any Cosmos native wallet, whether it's Kepler, Leap, Cosmos Station, and yields over 10%. So it pays pretty well. And then I guess, we're getting kind of towards the end of our conversation, and, as head of marketing, how is Seda's marketing strategy going to shift and transition from, kind of pre-product to mainnet, once everything shifts within the next couple of weeks?
Proof of product, man. That's like the biggest thing that we have, right? Like in the marketing, developer timelines are just such a tricky thing. Because when you're building dev nets, you don't know how long something's going to take. You can like ideate, but then like certain things pop up and things move around. So like we did a lot of talking over the last 12 months of like big claims, lots of like content forward, podcast series. We're talking with other projects about how we can, help them and all this kind of stuff. But where we're shifting to now is like product centric. Proof is in the pudding. Here, have a look at it. And also we're like trying to humanize the brand a little bit as well, because we realize like, all the brand accounts out there, everyone's screaming that they're the best. Mm-hmm. And we thought like, this is why I've been doing like a lot of garden content. Ben from Growth
think that is phenomenal, by the way. Yeah, I think that it resonated with me right away.
Awesome. I mean, that's great feedback, man. And we've been getting good feedback. Peter's been trying to do like more videos out on his daily walks with his dog, just like updating community. So we just realized like, why don't we just keep this real? Like we have a good product. It works. It's okay that it took a long time to build. Let's just show people exactly what it does, because we've talked about that. So, I mean, yeah, that's me like just dialing it down and going like, let's just keep this super real. And we've got some really cool like developer videos coming out. So Jasper, our CTO, is going to be doing a bunch of developer videos. We've got like a little campaign that we're cooking. It's not finalized yet, but like to get developers to sort of come in and build some Oracle programs off the bat. And then we have some like moving on from mainnet. Obviously, we have like a lot of the partners that we can finally do some real marketing with. And when I say real, is like not just do an announcement, like we can do the announcement and then showcase the case study, showcase it a month later, on-chain metrics, all the stuff that like defluffs Web3 marketing and just goes, this works, here's the proof, and this is why it's good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So is marketing the largest challenge that Seda faces kind of going forward? I mean, what are the obstacles that you guys see in order to gain adoption by, smaller and certainly less well-known networks?
Um, I don't know if it's marketing. I would say maybe it's like any kind of startup or anyone that has a big idea. It's super funny. We talk to these networks, right? Peter's been leading those conversations, and the conversations usually like, we'd just love to hear about like your Oracle needs, blah blah blah. And they go, yeah, we've like talked to XYZ, and they can integrate, but we keep sort of getting delayed for whatever reasons. New chains with more traction pop up, or they have other things going on. We just can't get the native asset feeds that we want, and they don't have the native asset feeds. And then Peter's like, oh, cool. Well, you mean you can spin that up? I mean, here's a video I'll send you a video of Jasper doing it in 97 seconds. And it's almost like, it's just super funny on those calls. Everyone's like, do I believe this guy? You know what I mean? Because it's such like a different message from all the other oracles that were built from a different time to what we're giving. And my personal belief is like BD's like the floodgate. So they're talking to all the networks now, lining up our partners. And then, yeah, I guess maybe it is marketing, right? It's like, we'll effectively show what this means. And then we'll just take that to all the other networks that are like 95% there, that they just need that extra 5%. Like, I want to see it, and then, it'll flood from there. And then I guess like we'll go to V2 from that point. And then it's just expansion. Yeah, it's just bringing it to new chains, going outside of the EVM as quickly as possible. But yeah, I think once we get to mainnet, a lot of our challenges go away.
Yeah, I'm a marketing guy, and I agree. If people don't know you exist, then it's really tough to succeed. And I think there are a lot of crypto projects that don't give enough attention to spreading the word. And so I guess, in thinking about the Seda community and the type of engagement you guys are looking for, what can a Seda community member do in order to help spread the word and to get Seda connected to more and more protocols and chains and projects?
Yeah, it's a good question. And like the honest side of myself just goes like, we just did the only way I say this is we just did an audit over 2 months of like all the communities that we considered to be, large traction. Really? And I don't think it comes to a surprise. Yeah, we're just like looking around, seeing what other people do, right? And it doesn't come as a surprise that like majority of the projects that we audited have some kind of like airdrop or like ongoing airdrop kind of thing to community. And then we kind of assess like what quality do we think their community is sort of just people there for the token who are just like dumping as soon as it comes in, or are they like restaking it and participating, running, for us, it'll be overlay nodes in the future that people will be able to run off their phones, or are they delegating, trying to look in and get a sense check of all that. One thing I love about like our community and what I would say is like, we'd like to activate our validators. That's one thing that we've talked about internally is like, okay, once we're finally up on mainnet, because I know you guys have been waiting for just as long as we have, let's revisit like validators and look at like, how can we encourage community to participate in the network through the POS function with validators? What would that look like for validators? How can we go out with them doing what we're doing here today, for example, different like education stuff, because we're very much, I would say, quality over quantity, and looking for community members that kind of get this and that are thinking, well, where is the puck going? And then seeing where Seda fits in. And then we'd love to like talk to anyone who considers themselves like a writer, considers themselves like an amateur dev or like a hobbyist dev that would like to explore like building programs with us in different things. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of opportunities, but I think, it's really once mainnet's up and running and we've got the proof in the pudding out there that we can sort of revisit some of these like more traditional community tactics, if I say so.
Then I would invite anyone who sees this or hears this conversation on YouTube or X or wherever, if you meet that description, leave a comment and we'll see if we can't get you connected to Matt or the Seda team. And I love, we run validators for chains where we've not met the team. And so I think that this is great. And I really appreciate your time. And I love knowing there's a human being on the other side of the internet. I think that's important. You know what I'm saying? And so,
100%.
yeah. So, I don't see any questions in the chat. So, any final thoughts before I let you go? I know your kids are coming home soon and you got stuff to do.
No, man. I mean, it's great. Yeah. I mean, we really, really appreciate this. It's great for me to get to know the validators as well. Like, goes both ways. I think that's like something I'm super like happy to be invited to do this. And I don't feel like I'm doing you a favor. I appreciate you giving me a platform to speak. And yeah, I think that's probably something that we like to do more in Seda. Once we sort of come out of our little hidey hole of building, that we can, yeah, I consider the validators a very big part of our community, and sort of activating validators, getting community attached to validators as well, I think would be a really cool like initiative between the Seda validators and me and the marketing team. But yeah, final thoughts. If you've been hanging on for the build, I appreciate you, because it has been a long time. We understand that there's a lot of noise in Web3. Things move very fast.
We were stoked to see stake and rewards start a few weeks ago. That was a wonderful upgrade.
Right. Yeah. Like that was, we were so like happy to get that out. I would just say that like everything you've been waiting for, it's like, we're right there now. You know, once this audit report is out, you can be like confident that, okay, it's just testnet. That's a short period of time compared to, like, it's not like a massive testnet season. And then it's mainnet, and then it's rolling out the EVM provers, connecting the solvers, first Oracle programs, first connection to the partners, first data request firing on the network, IBM launch, making that available in verifier marketplaces. Like it's really all happening.
Nice, man. Well, listen, I appreciate your time. I look forward to seeing more of what you're growing on your property on X, and and excited to throw a comment out there. But yeah, man, I appreciate it so much. I hope you have a really good day. And for anyone who's listening to this, leave a comment down below, and we'll do our best to get back to you quickly with a response. So
Appreciate it,
Matt.
Yeah, thank you.
Well.
Likewise. All right.
Absolutely. Bye.
Bye-bye.